Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. My name is Rob Leonard, and joining me, of course, is award-winning sports writer, and yes, my brother, Tim Leonard. Hello, brother. How are you?
Good morning, brother. I'm outstanding. Thank you for getting my name correct.
Well, you are my brother. I think I know it. You know,
there you go.
That's like I called you a name or something.
Yes. Good job, bro.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Anyway, brother, we actually had exhibition baseball this weekend.
How about that, brother? Very exciting stuff.
And I have to say, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Of course,
what were you expecting?
Well, you know what? That noise they put in, which I found out is
canned crowd noise,
which I found out is from a video game, not a regular game, which they could have looped.
That's correct.
You know, they could have taken an exciting game, Game 6 cheering or something, or from '86 or '90, whatever. They could have picked some game
from a 2000 Subway Series.
Yeah, whatever. That's a great one.
Could have used that sound when Timo Perez got thrown out at the plate.
Yeah, well, they could have done that. So it was. I wasn't bothered by that canned noise. Our friend Rob Tuck was.
Yeah, I was too a little bit. I wasn't real happy with it.
But you know what? You need that noise. You need something there.
The problem was that it was played at inappropriate moments.
Well,
first of all, they were playing cheering sounds when people made outs.
Well, that's it reminds me of, and you wouldn't know this, but fans of music would know this, brother. The first Kiss Alive album, there was a loop when they made the live album of the cheering audience. It was on a loop, and they just kept playing it underneath everything because they had to re-record most of the album because they just couldn't get it all right live. So they had this loop, and it's just if you listen to it, you notice it after a while. But a lot of people hadn't at the time. I think what they will probably figure out is that maybe you don't have to have it there constantly for not just outs, but just like anything bad that happens or good that happens, depending on, I guess, how you're watching the game and which side you're on. I didn't think it was that bad. I think what they also have to do is they have to put some sort of. They did it for MLS. I noticed is those things that cover the seats and like when you see the far away shot, like they'll have a shot looking at the pitcher, but then you see all the empty seats in the background.
Right.
They need to put some sort of coverage there, whether it's a advertising logo or just a regular logo. Hey, Mets or something, or the Yankees or whatever.
Well, that's what the Premier League has done. They had signage and club logos or slogans or thanks NHS, which is obviously the fine British healthcare system that we don't have in this country. But they have things that are already on the seats, and that's like the Oakland A's in their upper deck. They've had stuff to cover up the seats in the upper deck for several years now. That it would be nice if you had it maybe on the lower decks now, so that people, if they're watching the game, they're not just seeing empty seats. But of course, brother, at Citi Field, they had the cardboard cutouts, which was a source of amusement for me, let me tell you.
Well, you know what, brother?
The main reason why it was such a source of amusement to me, brother, two of the cardboard cutouts were dogs.
Well, for those who don't know,
I love that.
The Mets, and I guess other teams too, have offered season ticket holders for next year the opportunity to put a cardboard cutout of their face in the seats.
For $86, brother.
And they, of course, that was the last time the Mets won the World Series. That's why they use 86.
Right. So, and if the Mets had won the 2002 World Series, I'm sure it would have been $2.
Yeah, we know that wouldn't have been the case. What bothered me about it wasn't that they did it. I thought it was kind of cute. But they didn't fill the whole thing, which is typical of that whole...
They only had so many people do it. Who wants to pay nearly $100 for that?
Well, then, you do. You put other people's faces there. What bothered me was it's typical of the Mets and the Yankees because they're behind the plate seats are so expensive that people can't afford to sit there. because if they're corporate seats, no one's using them, which is ridiculous. And I don't think there's a ton of money for those seats. So you think they would have just put in regular faces, put in Keith Hernandez or put in the '86 Mets. Get a picture of Lenny Dykstra in there.
For the Yankees, for the game at Yankee Stadium, it really didn't look so different because those seats behind home plate at Yankee Stadium usually are pretty empty. So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I saw that, and I saw empty seats behind the plate, and I'm like, oh, that kind of looks normal.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I know I've heard other people say, well, that's because Yankee fans are in the room getting fed, and I'm like, no, they haven't sold them. Those are $1,500 a ticket. That's why they're empty. I've always believed, brother, that the Mets and the Yankees, since they're the only ones that seem to have problems with these super expensive seats, that they can't sell them. I've always believed that they should be like the Oscars. Every seat is always filled because if you have to go to the bathroom, someone comes in and is your seat filler, and then when you come back, you go back to the back of the room. And that's what they do. And I think they should have seat fillers for the Mets and the Yankees just to make, it's so embarrassing that they don't sell out those seats. And it's actually a horrible thing, too, because, those are great seats. But if no one's selling them or no one's buying them, well, then at least have someone there. Grab someone from the upper deck. Say, okay, today is your lucky day. You get to sit down in the first row there.
I'm ready, brother. Pay me $20 an hour. I'm ready to go there and fill the seat.
Yeah, well, you can pay people, or you can just do it. You don't have to pay people. If you said, here's a couple of free hot dog passes, I'm sure people would do it anyway. So, but it was nice seeing baseball back in New York. And like I said, I wasn't bothered by the noise. I did find out something very interesting, and I want to ask you about this afterwards, brother. Gary Cohen said on Saturday that Gary, Keith, and Ron are not traveling to any away games. They're going to be calling the games from Citi Field.
That is correct, brother.
They'll have a setup there to do it. And first of all, there was a couple of things about that, brother, that hit me. First of all, it reminded me of, and you would not know the guy's name. Who's the guy who used to be on Univision? He called the World Cup games and was go! Remember that guy?
Armando something. I should remember his name, and I don't.
Is he still around? I haven't seen his goals.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he is. I don't know that anybody has heard his call in a long time.
Right.
But he's certainly around.
Okay, so that was the first thing. The second thing, brother, in the world of cutting as much as you can from coverage of your team, can you see this as a future thing for
Andres Cantor? That was his name, brother.
That's it.
Andres Cantor.
Do you think that this could be a future way of covering sports as a sports writer or a radio reporter, or that we won't send you? Let me finish. That we won't send you away, but we'll do it from. We'll set up an office, and you can watch the game off the satellite or the cable or whatever. And that way, you don't have to we don't have to pay you to cover. We'll pay you to cover the game, but we don't have to pay you to travel and put you in the hotel room and pick up your meals and your drinks and whatever, and your groupies. So it could be a future way of covering.
How much does an average groupie cost, brother?
I don't know. Yeah, that was your days, brother.
Groupies do not cost anything. I can tell you that right now.
Groupies love Tim Leonard.
It's like we were talking about with Christy Ackert last week. Friend of the show, Christy Ackert, from the New York Daily News. It's a concern, and I hope it doesn't become the new normal as far as coverage goes. But it worries me that it could be, because you know that professional franchises would love to get the media out of the equation and figure out a way to do that. But as far as their own people, like Michael Kay calling Yankee games and Cohen and Darling and Hernandez calling the Met games, Could I see it? Sure. Is it possible? Absolutely. I don't know how they would do it, whether they would do what they did over this weekend and what is going to be the normal this season, which is send them to the stadium, have them call the game in the press box area, and just have a setup there with the monitors and the microphones and whatever they need to actually call the game. I certainly could see it becoming the new normal, but I hope it doesn't. Because if you're doing that, you become detached from the team. And
sure,
if you only see the team during home games or home stands, you as a reporter or a commentator, those guys depend on having some access to the players and being able to talk to players, and that helps them get stories that they're telling during games and during at bats, and it's
also like just off the record stuff. Hey, can tell me something off the record.
No, that's not how it works, brother. You don't just walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, tell me something off the record."
Well, but you know what I mean. That they'll tell you, say, "Hey, this isn't for me," but you've heard that a couple of hundred times. Tim, I know that.
Well, it's not so. It's not such a common thing as you make it sound. But if you don't have as much time with the players, first of all, that kind of time that is spent with the players leads to familiarity, and familiarity leads to breaking stories. As far from a newspaper reporter standpoint, guys who cover the team who are on the broadcast, they're not breaking stories like that, because that's not really their job, and a lot of breaking stories involve negative stories. So, it's not the job of a Gary Cohen or Michael Kay to do that. That's not what they do. And even if somebody told Michael Kay something exclusive like that, he probably would pass it off to a newspaper guy that he knew and liked. Because again, that's not his job. If somebody told him, "Hey, I just found out today my wife's having a baby." All right, yeah, he's not going to pass that. That's not a big story. It's a nice story. It's something probably would get written, but it's not a big deal. But if somebody, didn't show up or was upset about a manager's decision and felt it was costing him playing time, or something, Michael Kay is not going to air that out on the television broadcast because it's negative. And he still, despite what anybody might think, he still works for the team. And his job is to provide positive coverage, especially with the Yankees. That's George Steinbrenner loved anything positive coverage he was all about. But from what I watched this weekend, and I actually did watch the Mets broadcast last night. I consciously did that because Saturday night I was watching Michael Kay and Coney, and they described, and they even showed it during the broadcast. They showed them in a very dark Yankee Stadium. It was kind of creepy looking.
Right.
But they showed their setup and how they were socially distanced, and Michael Kay had his feet up in one picture, and Coney had his feet up in another picture, and they were just all sprawled out and had everything they needed. And then the next night they had, here's Keith Hernandez sitting next to Ron Darling in one booth, and there's Gary Thorne in another booth. And again, they showed
Gary Cohen.
Gary Cohen. What did I say? Gary Thorne. Gary Cohen. But they when the game started, it was still sunny out. But by about the fifth inning or so, you take a look on the field, it's dark.
Yeah, no,
great. And Gary Cohen even said at one point during the broadcast that just from sheer habit, that when something happened and he was looking, he's looking at the monitor and something, whatever it was that happened on the field, and he kept saying he was looking up to look at the field instead of looking at the monitor. He's doing that subconsciously because that's you would want to look at it live, but obviously you can't because they're not at the game. So
no, I understand that.
It would take a little getting used to from the announcers as well, but that's the reality that we're living in this COVID-19 world. Is this is going to be how it is, because you don't want you want as few people as possible at the games, and you want to be able to social distance and to keep everybody as safe as possible, and that's one way of doing it is having these guys set up somewhere else. You have a handful of people there to make the broadcast go, and you keep them away from the main ballpark. And it's not the worst idea in the world for current circumstances, but again, I hope it doesn't become the new normal and that, it's still an issue 2 years from now.
It could be, brother. I mean, it's a good way to save money. No offense, not that I'm for it, but you can understand. You've seen the cuts in the business.
Yeah, in the scheme of things, yeah, I agree that it is a way to save money. But when you're talking about the overall savings, it really won't amount to much.
No, I take that. I think about it. Think about the travel time. Let's say you go to Oakland, and then you're going to different parts of the West Coast. The West Coast feed is where I can see them not doing it. It's like when at the end where Ralph Kiner wouldn't travel to the West Coast and Vince Scully wouldn't travel to the East Coast. It was just easier for them to get around because of that. But I can see them saying, well, are people really watching in New York? They're watching these 10 o'clock games on SNY.
They are.
Well, maybe not. But I can understand if they said, well, why don't we just keep our guys here? I can see the Bergen Record saying, well, you know what? Let's save some money and let's not send them.
Bergen Record used to do that because they were cheap, but also because you weren't getting that game in the paper anyway.
Right. So I can see them saying, well, you're right. We're not going to get it in the paper because of the time. So what's the point? I mean, I can see it, brother.
But again, I'm talking about familiarity with players, and players notice stuff like that. Players notice who goes on the road, and they notice who is there every day.
Of course they do.
And that is something that leads to the trust factor and the familiarity, like I was talking about. And that will tell them, hey, you work for a real organization, or you work for kind of a not so real organization.
That's true, but at the same time, I can see it happening.
Yes, bro, you said that already.
You cover the East Coast, the Midwest. That would be okay. We covered three-fourths of the games live, or whatever. So I can see it happening. Anybody, it was nice to see Mets. And when's the season start?
Thursday for the Yankees, brother. Friday for the Mets.
So we look forward to
Thursday. Thursday we will have the Yankees at the Washington Nationals. There was some doubt thrown into the situation a few days ago. When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we were told that Washington might not be able to use Nationals Park, and that got sorted out. But apparently, the Toronto Blue Jays are not going to be able to use the Rogers Center, and currently are scrambling to find a place to put on home games, whether it be Buffalo or whether it be Dunedin, Florida, which is where their spring training games are played. That's where their minor league complex is.
Of course, the problem is the quarantining, which New York State has, but is, I guess, given a waiver for the Major League Baseball, and I guess any sport, because there is a 14-day quarantine supposedly, because New York's one of the few successful places right now that's been fighting COVID-19.
Exactly. We did it right.
Our strong and good-looking governor.
Yes.
He put the foot down, unlike our current president, who says, "Yeah, sure, do what you want."
Unlike our bumbling, weak president.
Yeah. So, but that's what's going on. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know why we didn't know about this weeks ago with Toronto and with Canada. You would think that either somebody from the team would have said, "Hey, we're good, right?" Or somebody from Justin Trudeau or his cabinet or whatever would have said to Toronto, "Yeah, hey, we got a problem here, and this isn't going to work." So, how did Major League Baseball not have an agreement from every team saying this is okay?
Well, that's my source of befuddlement, brother. Is that I don't know why we found out about this with Toronto a week before the season starts.
Right.
It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous that anybody like I said, whether it's Major League Baseball as an organization, whether it's the Toronto Blue Jays as a franchise, whether it's somebody in the Canadian government, somebody at some point several weeks ago should have said, hey, we're going to have issues here. We got to talk about this today.
Well, the other thing is, brother, the other thing is that the fact that I'm sure the teams have already started to book flights or, something to get to Toronto. They don't book flights,
but they got charters. They just.
But they still got to put that together, brother. It's not like they just walk in to the airport and say we're here, get out the plane. The
plane is there. They just go to the airport and the pilot knows where to go. And that part of it is the least of their problems. Booking hotel rooms could become a problem because if they have to go to Dunedin, Florida, there are hotels down there because obviously they stay down there during spring training. But, if the Yankees are going to Dunedin for a minor league game, chances are they're not. I don't know where Dunedin is in relation to Tampa, but chances are they're just getting on a bus, going there, and as soon as the game is over, they'll take a bus and go back. They're not staying in Dunedin. No, they'll come back and stay at their own facility. So from that standpoint, it's not a big deal. But for this, now they're going to be playing 3-game series, and they're going to need a hotel. So I don't know. I mean, that's even though obviously we have a trimmed down travel group with the team and players, coaches, and support staff, but you're also talking about probably a couple dozen media members as well. That could wind up being a lot of hotels if it winds up being Dunedin, Florida.
Yeah,
you're gonna have some people in a Motel 6.
We should say that the NHL will be playing in Toronto and it will be playing in Edmonton. They'll be starting up in about a week and a half. And they will be playing in Toronto because I guess the players will be there. Plus, they're not traveling in and out of Toronto, so they'll be in there. And they have two hubs they're playing in, Edmonton and Toronto. Yeah, they'll be in their own bubble. So for those worrying about the NHL, because Toronto, well, they already figured that out. A couple of things, brother. You know that television and sports are, they go hand in hand. But when you start seeing World Team Tennis on ESPN or ESPN2 and Major League Lacrosse highlights on SportsCenter, because there's no other sports right now, things are a little different in this world. And I saw it last night. I'm like, wow, they showed Major League Lacrosse. Those guys at MLL must be going ecstatic because they do have a contract. I forgot who it's with, but it's not ESPN. And then World Team Tennis was actually on ESPN2. They were showing on CBSN. They were showing the bowling finals. Now, I don't know the players anymore, and I don't know if you do, but I used to know them because we used to watch it all the time.
Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons. Yes.
But there was no crowd there at all. So they were just sort of. It looked like it was bowling a 300 bowl or something. Or
yes.
It was just strange to watch it, but they showed it, and they I think the finals were this past weekend. So, I didn't see who won, but at the same time, it was okay. Well, they got to show something, and World Team Tennis doesn't matter. I don't think because they never really drew a lot anyway.
Well, I mean, it all matters, but
it matters. But you know what I mean.
It's programming, and yeah, I know what you mean in the sense that would it draw any kind of big rating? Probably not, but
it was live.
Programming.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
It was
but it's finally live. It's live because they're playing, and that's what's going on. And I keep telling people where friends of mine are like, oh, you finally have sports to talk about again and on the show, right? And I'm like, yeah, but not really. I said, and I told some people this week. Sports are getting close, but we're not quite here yet. There's more to talk about because NBA players are in the bubble down in Florida, and NHL players are starting to practice and getting ready to resume the season and go to their playoff format. And baseball is training and they're at their sites. But we're looking at, like you said, if Major League Lacrosse is 3 plays on the SportsCenter top 10, or World Team Tennis gets in the top 10, Harry Kane was number 3 last night. My man Harry Kane from Tottenham, well deserved, I must say. The goal he scored was spectacular.
That was a great goal.
But, we're talking, he plays in England. It's not America. So that's, he's not quote unquote our sports, but we're almost there, people. So stay patient, wear a mask, and let's give it another week or two. July 1st is when the NBA, I believe, is starting.
August 1st.
I'm sorry, July 30th. What did I say?
30th,
July 1st?
okay.
July 30th for the NBA and August 1st for the NHL. So, we're almost there. And let's not make the mistake that this means that we're done with coronavirus, because we most certainly are not. It's still at pandemic levels in many states in this country, but a little bit of normalcy is returning, and that can only be a good thing. It gives people a distraction. It gives people another reason to stay home. First of all, that's to me is a good thing. You can stay home, you can watch a game, you can have a beer and have some snacks, because everybody's got tons of snacks right now. But it gives people something to do. And while we wait out this whole thing to hopefully go away, as long as people actually do what they need to do to make that happen. We were talking about the Mets and the Yankees before, and something I did want to touch on. First of all, we didn't even give the results of those exhibition games, brother. I can understand why you, as a Met fan, might want to overlook that, but 9-3 to the Yankees on Saturday. And then 6-0 to the Yankees on Saturday, on Sunday. I mean, so a fairly thorough butt whooping by the Yankees this weekend in the home and home series, which was nice to see as a Yankee fan. I'll tell you that. I liked the pitching that we saw, considering that young right-hander Michael King started on Saturday, gave the Yankees 4 strong innings, 1 run on 3 hits. That was pretty nice. And my man Clint Frazier, who is wearing a mask during games while he's hitting, parked one in Citi Field in the second deck, which immediately made me put on Twitter, if Clint Frazier can mash while he's wearing a mask, then you can wear one at the supermarket. So
yeah, well,
I don't mean you specifically, brother. I mean you as a society. So let's no,
I understand that, and that is a good point. I mean, I personally, brother, when I wear the mask and I'm walking, and I only wear it when I'm inside of places. I don't wear it when I was at Jones Beach last night walking. I walk without a mask because I can't breathe because I'm so heavy. Partly, I have problems breathing to begin with.
If you're socially distanced, it's fine.
Yeah,
if there's nobody around you, you don't have to wear a mask. If there's nobody within 50 feet of you, you don't have to wear a mask. But
maybe it's 10 feet. But.
All right, but it's we're talking about when you're getting in close proximity with other people. That's when masks are necessary. And if you're walking on the boardwalk, at night or whenever you're taking a walk, you don't necessarily have to have a mask. But if you're in a supermarket or buying whatever essentials you need at Costco or something, then yeah, you need a mask because there's people everywhere.
But you see me walk at Costco, and I drag my feet. I can't breathe very well. So, but I understand. But the fact that he hit a homer, with a mask on, is pretty good. I mean,
I was impressed.
I thought so. It's funny because at the end of the game on Saturday, they were giving high fives, but they were like 10 feet away from each other.
Air high fives is what they're calling
air high fives. Yeah. So
that's the big thing now.
Yeah, so and also besides Clint Frazier, I mean Aaron Judge
hit 2 bombs last night.
He looked good.
The significance of that, brother, was his first at bat of the quote unquote spring. Now that we're in the summer, whatever we're calling it, the summer camp, spring training 2.0. But Aaron Judge had not played when they were training down in Florida, be it February, March, or whatever. He had yet to take an at bat in a game down there. So his first at bat of this spring training, summer camp / whatever, was a home run. And then a few innings later, he hit another home run. So it's good to see Aaron Judge hitting bombs. And I will say, the Yankees hit 5 home runs last night off of Mets pitchers. None of those home runs was less than 400 feet.
Well, let's
no cheapies.
I'm actually hoping that the Mets always start the season very better than ending. They have a history of that. So I'm actually hoping that since we only have 60 games, that they jump out early, which I think is going to be the main thing for all the teams. If you don't jump out early, I don't want to say it's over, but it's over pretty fast. So, and since there's no game with games with crowds, it doesn't really matter. It's not like, well, at the end of the season, I'll get some tickets because the Mets are doing better. Or they're doing worse.
When you say it doesn't matter, what is that? I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it doesn't matter about day of game ticket sales, that type of thing. What I'm saying is that if the Mets win all 60 games, and they don't add any extra money to their
coffers,
so to speak, because there's no people walking up who didn't buy season tickets and saying, well, I got to get, this is the place to be. I got to get tickets. So that's what I'm talking about. It happens with any successful team at the end of the season, especially if they weren't thought to do good at the beginning. So, because not everyone buys season tickets. And to be honest with you, by season, it's all corporate now, or people who buy 2 tickets and it's a write-off on the second ticket. A guy owns a deli or something, or small business, and he writes it off that way.
Right.
So tickets are so expensive.
It's a tax write-off. Yeah.
The tickets become so expensive, and then what happens at the end of the season? If it's just the opposite, the team is bad. The people who have those tickets are selling for $5 or $10 on StubHub or something.
StubHub, or giving them away on Craigslist. I mean, that will happen. That or they'll give them away to a charity to take the tax write-off, whatever. I mean, it's
right.
But I mean, I'm not really worried about that, brother.
I'm not either. But I'm just saying. Anyway, brother, you're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. The show you're listening to is From the Press Box, here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., part of the WHPC Sports Talk franchise. Sports Talk is on Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., and, of course, an additional airing is on Tuesdays, 10 p.m. to midnight, and, of course, us every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. My name is Rob Leonard, and joining me, of course, is award-winning sports writer, and yes, my brother Tim Leonard. And this hour of From the Press Box is brought to you by Good Gold. Join Big Ed Newlands every Monday, 10 a.m. Well, it's usually till 12 noon, brother, but he is actually, for the month of July, only on till 11. Ooh. So he will be returning, though, to the 2-hour show sometime in August. So
one less hour of Big Ed. That's a big hit.
Well, he's filling in for 5 other people, so he's filling in for Dassa. He's filling in. He does shows at home. When he's not, he just turns on the mic and starts talking up songs.
At the Big Ed Mansion.
That's at the Big Ed. At Big Ed Land. There's Graceland and then there's Big Ed Land.
Casa de Big Ed.
Yeah, Casa de Big Ed. So just to let everyone know what's going on here at the station, go to ncradio.org to find out about our streaming stuff. And also, we become a podcast later on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, among other places you can find us. So if you miss our show or want to hear it again because you love it, you can go there too. Okay, yes. Brother, a couple of things.
Wait, before you start, bro, because I know you're about to change the subject. I do want to talk about the strange story of the weekend because it was weird.
What is it? You didn't tell me.
Domingo Germán, brother.
Germán.
The Yankees right-hander basically put his future with the Yankees in doubt on Saturday. He posted a note in Spanish on Instagram. I am not a Spanish speaker other than being able to say dos cervezas, por favor, mi amigo, which translates to 2 beers, please, my friend. But he posted something on Instagram which was translated to, I left baseball, thanks my people. And people went crazy because it was pretty easily assumed that Domingo Germán at age 27 was retiring because that's what it looked like. That's what it looked like. So for 24 hours, there were stories about, well, hey, what's going on with Domingo Germán? Because nobody could get a hold of him. Aaron Boone didn't know what was going on. Brian Cashman didn't know what was going on. And there were a lot of people in the Yankee world who were not able to comment because nobody knew what was happening. Now, Domingo Germán, just to remind people of the background, Domingo Germán has 63 games left on his suspension that he is serving for violating Major League Baseball's domestic violence policy last year. Now, remember that last year he served, because it was an 81, it was a half a season suspension. He served 18 games of that last year by missing the last handful of games during the regular season and then more games in the playoffs. And there are only 60 games this season. So the league said he would be eligible to play in the 2020 postseason, I believe. But he also will be able to play at the beginning of 2021. So Germán, the day after, apparently, I don't know what happened or if anybody talked sense into him or if anybody said to him, dude, there are people going insane right now because nobody knows what you're doing. But he actually wound up saying the next day on Sunday, he came out and said, no, I'm not retiring, that I was just frustrated at watching my teammates prepare for the season that I'm not going to be a part of. So I don't know what's going on or, what kind of
that's understandable, Tim, but at the same time,
it's a really weird thing to put out there.
That's why I think that, all players should not be on Twitter or Instagram or anything. I really think they should just ignore it. And, unless something libelous has been said about you and you have to correct it or something's out there that you have to correct. But, I know that they probably they think, oh, yeah, the players should be out there. No, it should be just the opposite. Don't do it. Stay off of Instagram and Twitter and the rest.
Well, Domingo Germán should stay off Twitter and the rest.
Well,
I don't know what it was such a bizarre story and such a bizarre happening that why would it even need to be explained? I don't know. I mean, I agreed with the MLB suspension. There was the incident with Germán's girlfriend, but it's something that was just a very strange thing for him to do. And he should just keep his head down, not say anything to anybody about the suspension, just serve it out and be ready to play whenever he's allowed to play again, period. And end of
I agree. There are times when the best thing to say is nothing.
Yes.
There used to be a pizza place I used to go to, and it said, a wise man thinks twice before saying nothing. So I've always remembered that. And they had good Sicilian pizza. That's how I remember the place.
Sounds like a Derek Jeter quote.
It might be. That is kind of a Derek Jeter way. Because he never really said anything to the press, But
yes. Also, brother, I would like to point out that your guy Luis Rojas, the new Mets manager.
Yes.
If his plan this season is to bat Robinson Cano third and Yoenis Cespedes fourth, then the Mets might as well mail in the season right now because they won't finish above third place. I don't understand the Mets lineups. From the games against the Yankees on Saturday and yesterday. Does Luis Rojas think it's like 2014 or something? I don't get it. Why would you have an aging Robinson Cano who actually took a few days off from summer camp, spring training 2.0, again, whatever we're calling it, to go home to the Dominican Republic for reasons that he would not elaborate on, and Yoenis Cespedes, who hasn't played in 2 years because of injuries? Why would you have both of them at number 3 and 4 in your lineup? What possessed Luis Rojas to say, yeah, this is a good idea?
Well, you know what? If you're going to try it, the best place to try it, Tim, is in an exhibition game. So, I mean, maybe they wanted to see if it would work. I don't think it is. I think you put them a little bit lower in the lineup because of many reasons. But at the same time, if you're going to try it, do it in an exhibition game to see what it looks like. If I was a manager during the exhibition season, I would do like triple steals. I would do, I'd do all that type of stuff because I would be stealing home because it's an exhibition game. Who cares if you win? You want to see how your players handle what's going on. And if they, I'd steal home all the time. If I was at third, who cares? These games don't count.
Yes, bro. I get what you're saying, but you're also trying to prepare for the season. Part of preparing for the season is developing a routine. Baseball players operate on a routine. Everything they do is a product of repetition just repetitions. And I don't get. I mean, might Yoenis Cespedes become the power hitting force that he was before he got hurt and before he stepped in that gopher hole and broke his ankle? Yeah, it's possible, but he hasn't played in 2 years. You don't put that kind of player at the number 4 spot. If I'm Luis Rojas, I got Cano hitting at best. I have him hitting 5th. And Cespedes at best, I have him hitting 6th, and probably I maybe push him down to 6 and 7. And if they hit their way back into the middle of the lineup, that's great. But I don't get. Cano didn't have a good year last year.
No,
why are you hitting 3rd? I just didn't get. I mean, to me, Nimmo 1st, McNeil 2nd, Alonso 3rd, Conforto 4th. Those to me are the Mets' best 4 bats. That's how the Mets' top 4 of the lineup should be. Cano 5th, Cespedes 6th. I'm fine with that if that's how they want to do it. But I mean, to me, the Mets have a good lineup. It's not a great lineup by any stretch of the mean, but they have good bats up and down their lineup. There are pretty good hitters. I think overall the lineup could certainly be improved, but there's no real black hole there, like a lot of teams have. And you got Wilson Ramos. You got to stick him in there somewhere as well. You could stick Ramos 5th and then move Cano and Cespedes down until they actually establish themselves, as productive hitters. But to just drop them in there at 3 and 4, I was stunned by that. Absolutely stunned.
Well, the fact that those guys have a short season, and this is for other players too, it's probably going to help them a little bit. So, I think that's important, for the Mets this year, as a 60-game season is about to start, and I think it'll be very important for the Mets because it's a sprint. There's no jogging here. It is a sprint.
Sprint, yeah. Which is why having a healthy Jacob deGrom is a very good thing for the Mets. He left his start on Tuesday, again, just to provide some background. Left his start on Tuesday after 1 inning because of a stiff back, and you could see deGrom grimacing. Apparently, this is an injury he's had before, but then it loosened up a little bit. They took an MRI, came back clean.
Right.
DeGrom pitched a simulated game last night or yesterday, and said everything is good. He said thought he heard it from sleeping wrong. Quote, that was his words.
I've done that. I know that feeling.
Okay, but apparently he says he's feeling good, and the Mets opened the season on Friday against the Atlanta Braves and Mike Soroka, who was a very good young pitcher. So we're looking at DeGrom being on the mound for that one, which I'm sure all Met fans were holding their breath in anticipation, because let's face it, the Mets rotation this year, it's not a strength. It's not like it has been for the last 5 or so seasons for the Mets, where they had those 4 starters and people were looking at them as, well, the staff is we got 4 guys that can win 20 games here. Right now, it's DeGrom, Marcus Stroman, Steven Matz, Rick Porcello, and Michael Wacha. I mean, after DeGrom, it's not an intimidating group. It's certainly 4 guys who have had success. Well, besides Matz, I guess, have had success in the major leagues. Matz was pretty good last year, and this should be some sort of a breakout. I'll call it season, for lack of a better word. But he is a guy who could become a very important guy for the Mets this season. But you could be looking at DeGrom and 4 underachievers this season. I mean, it's the rotation, like I said, has been a strength for this team for several seasons now. It's been what they have pinned their hopes on. But it looks like that window is pretty much closed, because like I said, you have DeGrom. Stroman is a guy who I think they have expectations for and should be, a reliable number 2 starter. But the rest of those three guys, there's nothing necessarily special there from the results of the last couple seasons anyway.
No, I agree. Let's talk about NFL football. Training camps going into effect. And, of course, the NFL just ignores life around it. They're like, we're just going to have our regular season, basically, and, does it really matter because, we have these huge TV contracts, and we'll get by. We have a short season to begin with, 20 weeks and you're out and you're done. But it seems like the NFL, as always, the last couple of years has been stepping in it because a lot of players are starting now to complain, which is understandable.
Most players yesterday complained, brother. There was first of all, let me just say what hundreds of NFL players yesterday on Twitter expressed their concerns with the NFL's lack of a plan on how to protect the health of the players. And I will say this, there have been few things in sports in the last several years that have bothered me or angered me as much as the NFL's complete lack of a plan for the upcoming season. And the NFL, we've talked about this before, the NFL has had all of this time. The coronavirus basically started a few weeks after the Super Bowl.
Right.
So the NFL has had several months. We're talking 4 months, basically 4 months. Let's say, I won't even say 5 because it could be 5, but basically they've had at least 4 months to put a plan together. And they have no plan. Players have no idea if they're going to be tested every day, every other day, less than that. I don't understand. The NFL wants to handle coronavirus the same way Trump is handling coronavirus. In other words, they're trying to ignore it away, which I'm going to let you know right up front here, brother, that's not going to work.
Well, brother, the part of it was that there was talk that, it will be gone by the fall.
But if you're a league, you can't prepare like that. And it's been fairly obvious for a long time now, and by a long time I mean at least a couple of months, that this thing wasn't going anywhere. I
know that, but that's the NFL's mentality, not just for this, but for other things, has always been, okay, we're the NFL, it always works out, and if it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Exactly, but that's a poor plan.
It's a
lousy plan. It shows that the players are correct in saying the league doesn't care about our health. They've taken no steps whatsoever to say, how are we going to handle this? I mean, first of all, the NFL, they have camps opening this week. All right? Look at the way the NHL did it. Look at the way the NBA did it. They had players on site at least a week before they started because they did testing on everybody. Because you want to identify the players who might have it, might be asymptomatic. DJ LeMahieu shows up at Yankee camp. And in fact, he didn't show up at Yankee camp. He was tested before he was going to show up. He was found to have coronavirus. Same thing with Luis Cessa, the right-hander. These guys didn't show up because the team told them, hey, stay home, self-isolate, get better, we'll get testing to you, and we don't want this thing to spread throughout the entire team. Well, what are you going to do if you're the NFL and you haven't tested anybody and 70-something players, if not more, whatever the number is, show up at your facility and say, all right, I'm here. What do we do now? Well, you got to test everybody. You have to test them before they show up.
Where's the Players Association? Where's the NFL Players Association a month ago saying, come on, guys, what's the plan?
That they have been doing that. That's why the mass I guess I'll call it a protest or whatever you want to call it, but that's why the mass protest on Twitter yesterday. And like I said, hundreds of players posted basically the same thing on Twitter that, hey, the NFL hasn't come up with a plan. And here we are. Camps are opening. There's no plan for testing players. There's no plan for what happens if a player gets it. There's no plan for what happens if one of a player's family member gets it. There is literally no plan.
Well, this is actually a good thing that players should go to Twitter and Instagram and complain about.
You're in favor of.
Well, for this it is, because it's basically the whole league. They're doing it, and it's a good point. You know, the NFL should. There's two things they should do. They should do daily testing. That's the first thing. Second of all,
I agree.
And maybe put thin plastic in between the helmets. You know, have the guards, the shield guard thing.
Yes, the face guards.
Face guard thing. Maybe they should have it for all the players inside their helmets. So if they're spitting or whatever, it's not going to go anywhere. You know,
linemen have been known to spit, brother.
A little bit, you know.
Sometimes accidentally, and other times on purpose. But
that's part of their charm.
Yes, exactly.
And
part of their charm is they're trying to rip somebody's head off.
Yeah, so I would try to do that if I was them. I'm not sure, but you could tell, you know, consistently misses the point on so many things.
The man is making $40 million a year. He shouldn't be missing any points.
No,
I mean, my opinion on this is if the NFL wants to have a season, brother, then Goodell and his merry band of idiots need to make some decisions in the next 48 hours, because why this has taken so long is nothing short of confounding for me.
Well, I also think this is where the TV money comes in, because the NFL makes the most out of any league from TV money, because it's a weekly, you know, showing of all their games.
It's destination television.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So they you know, the people at Fox and CBS and NBC and ESPN should say, hey, are we going to have a season or not? Because we got to plan this.
It shouldn't take television executives. It shouldn't get to that point.
No,
it should be the NFL. It should be the NFL calming the television people, saying, hey, we got a handle on this. Don't worry, we're going to have a season.
No, I agree. But, you know, that's, you know, if they said, hey, no money, I mean, I'm sure they paid them for the season already. But imagine they said, hey, let's hold back the money until we figure out what's going on. Because you can have a big outbreak, and, you know, you need one big outbreak and you can cancel 4 or 5 games.
We've been saying on this show for months now that the NFL is going to be the most difficult league to deal with coronavirus. You have, you know, I mean, just on the line, you have players smashing into each other on every play. So that's at least 5 players on each side, if not more, smashing into each other at the line of scrimmage. So that right there is prime area for the spread of the virus. Now, like you said, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that having some sort of face shield on the inside of the helmets is one way to go, and I think it's a good idea. But I don't even know if it's been implemented yet. And that's just one thing. I mean, it's a good idea, and it certainly would help, but that's just one thing. And the fact that NFL players have no idea what's going on yet. Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks, the quarterback, his wife is pregnant. He put that on Twitter last night. Hey, my wife is pregnant, and we're expecting our first child. How do I play when I have no idea what's going on, and I could be putting my future child's life at risk? Right. You know, that's a very legitimate question. And why the NFL doesn't have an answer for that is just a dereliction of duty, as far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree. I think the NFL is just walking through this like saying, well, the NFL, and don't worry about it, because that's the way they've always done it. But you think with all the crap that they've been through the last couple of years, they'd be out ahead of this. When they're not. It's
exactly. And that's the part to me is
you think they'd be leading all the leagues and saying, okay, this is what we're doing, and we if you want to copy us, we don't care, but we should be doing this, and we will be doing this, and they're not. And then, will they have extra players? Will they have extra players? This year
they will need them, and that brings me to my other point is that you look at what happened with the Orlando Pride and the NWSL and FC Dallas and the Nashville team in MLS. They had to pull their teams out of tournaments because they had massive number of cases on the team. What happens in the NFL? First of all, the NFL is a sport that relies on a lack of social distancing. The premise of the league is for people to smash into each other and defenses are trying to prevent offenses from creating social distancing. All right, that's one way of explaining the NFL.
No, that's right. I agree.
But if you have a mass number of cases on an NFL team, and this is in season, let's say half a dozen guys are tested positive. Well, now you have all of these other guys who have been working out with them. Who, what do? Do you isolate them? Do you quarantine them? I mean, that's why my issue with the NFL, which has had 4 months to look and see what other leagues are doing and how they're handling it, and to put together some kind of plan. That's why I am just absolutely infuriated that they have done nothing. They've had all of this time. They've had other leagues to look at and to provide them with a model of maybe how to do things or how they might be able to do this effectively, even though I don't think they'll be able to. But they've had 4 months to put something in place, and they have nothing in place. And that all falls on Roger Goodell. And that's just a terrible job that he's done.
As always with Roger Goodell, because I don't know, he just thinks he's better. Pete Rozelle wouldn't allow this to happen.
I just don't get it. When you're this close to opening camp and you have this massive demonstration by players to say, hey, look, we're in the dark here. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how we're going to protect ourselves, our careers, our livelihoods, our families. We just, nobody's told us anything.
Okay, brother, that
it's unbelievable.
Does it for our show. You've been listening to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Thanks to Sean out there in Radio Land for keeping this all on the air. And we'll be back next Monday with more sports, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'll see you Friday with Beatles songs, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Take care. And I couldn't remember. I'm sorry.
Come on, brother.
27 years.
27 years.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.